Take your seat and don't be late. We need your spirits high as we join Styx for a show at the Paradise Theater. Stay with us. Welcome, one and all, to the 3324 podcast. You have found us. I'm Dean here with Eric, and we've got over 25 episodes of music and movie goodness to share with you for you to go back and check out our back catalog. We actually have a back catalog now, Eric.
Isn't that fantastic? 25. Wow. We even have a playlist going, I do believe.
Yeah, I remember when I was 25.
Yeah, you even made a playlist of taking a couple of songs from each of our album episodes. And I think it's great. We're rocking and rolling.
Yeah. So go ahead and check it out. We do old stuff. We do new stuff. We do movies, music, a little bit of everything. So I guarantee you there'll be something for you if you go check it out. 3324.buzzsprout.com if you want to go to the website, but otherwise you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, Amazon. We're on all the big ones. We are hitting with we're swinging with the big ones.
Yep. Stitcher as well.
Yeah. Audible, you name it. Anywhere you find your podcast, we're there. So we make it very easy. And then you can check us out on social media, 3324 podcast. You'll find us at Facebook and Instagram using that handle. And we're very vibrant on social media. And we also do live shows every couple of weeks or so. And those are a lot of fun. We just did one last week, which was a blast. It was probably the most fun.
Yep.
Yeah, we had a really good time with it.
Always appreciate your feedback, comments. We have some loyal listeners that I think have been absolutely great. We're looking for more, but we can't say nothing but good things about these people, and we really appreciate you supporting us throughout all of these 25 episodes.
Yeah,
so I think it's fantastic. Yep.
25 and counting. So we are still going. We're going higher and higher. So
onward and upward.
Yep. Onward and upward. And in this episode, we are going to be talking about a fantastic album. This is a classic among classics from Styx from 1981. Mm-hmm. The album is Paradise Theater. So let's do the stats, and this will give you the framework for our conversation, and then we will dive into it. So it was released in January of 1981. Produced by Styx, but basically Dennis DeYoung. It hit number one. The album hit number one for 3 weeks on the Billboard charts. So this was a biggie. Mm-hmm. And 4 million in sales to date. So that's 4 times platinum. And since we're talking about fours, there were 4 singles released. Best of Times hit number 3. Too Much Time on My Hands hit number 9. Nothing Ever Goes as Planned sunk at number 54, and Rockin' the Paradise hit number 8. And this was their 10th album.
Yeah.
So if you're not familiar with Styx, they have a pretty interesting pedigree.
Yeah.
Really started out as one thing, and then ended up as another, which does happen with a lot of bands, but they had their roots really in progressive or prog rock.
Yeah, in the very early years, just sort of, and from a band that hails from Boston?
Chicago.
How did I get that wrong? Yeah. Okay. So you think of like the prog rock as like the big boys, like Yes, and they're all from England. Genesis, ELP, so when you say prog rock, Pink Floyd, it's like they are what comes to mind. Styx, they started out as this kind of thing. And it's actually, well, in my wheelhouse, so it's actually kind of cool. I kind of like a lot of the old stuff.
Yeah,
those early albums didn't really do that well, but they interesting stuff.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff on there.
Yeah,
they didn't do anything. Their biggest hit from that era, which was Lady, was basically a fluke. It didn't hit until well after the album that it was on came out. And then it just kind of got discovered. Mm-hmm. And that really was not in the same vein of the stuff that they were doing.
No,
there was a lot of hard rock stuff,
right?
Courtesy of James Young. And then there was a lot of that swirly, organy, synthesizy stuff
too,
and
noodling,
the lyrics about wizards and serpents,
all the stuff that comes with prog rock,
all that lyrical content,
all the
subjects of prog,
all that nonsensical fairy tale kind of thing that means nothing, to the average listener. But
and they even did a song called Lord of the Rings, so which was on Pieces of Eight, and that was after they had kind of shed the prog stuff.
That's right. That's right.
A little bit. It still had those elements, and they had a song called Lord of the Rings. So we're getting ahead of ourselves, but that was that's the pedigree of Styx. Is a lot of people know them as the ballads and as Babe and Don't Let It End and stuff like that, but they really were a progressive rock band and had a much harder edge to them too, up for their first, I guess, 5 albums or so. And then there was a kind of a personnel change, which facilitated a change. So let me go through the lineup that we're talking about for Paradise Theater. And then we'll talk about our connection to Styx.
Yep.
So the leader is Dennis DeYoung, and he's on keyboards. You've got Tommy Shaw, who joined in 1976 on guitar. James Young, founding member, also on guitar. And a very interesting rhythm section.
Yeah.
You've got John Panazzo on drums and his brother, Chuck Panazzo, but not only his brother, but his twin brother.
Twin brother, yes.
Yes. And they're fraternal twins. So they're kind of like Robin and Morris Gibb. They don't look alike.
Not at all.
Twins. And they take care of the rhythm section.
Yeah.
And so that's
John is a fantastic drummer. I mean,
after listening to this, I forgot how much I liked him.
Yep.
And Chuck too. There's a lot that I forgot about Styx. A lot of the stuff you remember, but then sitting down and listening to this album, a lot came back about really why I like them.
I think you pretty much nailed it on the head right there. I think when you say a lot came back, I think that's going to be kind of like the overarching theme of this episode. I just want to come clean right here and say that I did not. You might think that I came ill prepared in terms of research, but it's more about personal memory for me.
Yeah.
So that's going to be pretty much the bulk of my end of the conversation. So
it's important.
Yeah.
And for the records, they had 4 straight triple platinum albums as well. So these guys were selling records hand over fist. I mean, they were just cranking out great music. They had 8 top 10 singles.
Yeah.
So they were on the charts pretty consistently too, hitting there. And then there was a lot of those album oriented rock, classic rock songs too, that didn't hit the charts, but that everybody knows.
That's right.
From Styx as well. So they had the best of both worlds. They weren't like Zeppelin where the stuff wasn't on the radio, but you knew it because it was on like classic rock radio.
Yeah.
Styx had one foot on the charts. And then some of their other stuff, that proggier stuff or that more deeper stuff would be played on the classic rock radio.
And live. A lot of their live stuff. I mean, a lot of like Sweet Madam Blue and songs of that ilk. They, those were like live staples. The longer sort of, more instrumental type stuff where they kind of branch out. Snowblind,
which is on this album.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's so Paradise Theater is the one we're talking about, and it's a concept album, but it's a pretty loose concept. It's not each song. There's just the thread, and there's an overall concept about transitioning from the 70s into the 80s, and it's kind of contrasted with the Paradise Theater concept of when it was vibrant and full of life, and then over time deteriorates. And I guess it's a statement on what was happening as we transitioned from the 70s to the 80s.
Absolutely. It's kind of a metaphor.
About the fear of that deterioration of society.
Yeah, it's like when people went to these kinds of places to listen to music, see live acts, and it was just, good time, old timey kind of stuff. And, so the metaphor is, then we're headed into the 80s territory. So, we're just celebrating MTV's 40th birthday. So we're digging into, it would
oddly enough,
it was this same year.
And if you're going to go there, I'll drop some knowledge. The music video for Rockin' the Paradise was the 10th video to air on MTV.
Yeah, there you go.
So not only are we celebrating the 40th anniversary, but we've got one of the 10 videos, top 10 videos that was played. That was the 10th one.
Yeah.
So go there, go Styx. They were there from the beginning. So they're one of the, you could say, top one of the first 10 videos. They're one of the building blocks of MTV. There you go. I'm bestowing that honor on them.
And Dennis DeYoung was there. He was the mastermind behind that kind of thinking, I think. And just keeping up with what was happening around him, the landscape of music, and that would play very much into their music, and especially those later albums too, I think.
Yeah, and not only were they, and I think this is inherent in prog rock, is there's usually an element of showmanship.
Yeah.
And Dennis DeYoung embraced that as well. He was. Not only was he the front man, he was the main lyricist, he was the leader of the group, but he also had those Broadway style attributes or kind of that element to him. Yeah, those sensibilities.
He was most definitely a performer,
and it would become their undoing.
Yeah.
It would lead to their undoing.
Yes. Yeah.
Which we'll get to.
Yep.
But for now, Paradise Theater is in the wheelhouse. So how did you come to Styx?
Kilroy was here.
Yeah, I think our story is the same.
The concert. We a mutual friend of ours got tickets to see them. This was my first rock and roll concert. And it wasn't what I expected at all. It was more like watching a Broadway show here. This was this multimedia thing with this movie attached to it, and it had it was like a sci-fi kind of thing, and I felt like I was watching like a science fiction movie or something, and it just kind of when the movie ended, it went right into the stage presence of what they were doing. They kind of mocked the stage to look exactly like the last shot of the film, and it was amazing. For our first real show like this. I never see. I got a lot out of that, and it was performed in a theater, as I recall.
Yep.
Do you remember the name of the theater that we went to?
I absolutely do.
Okay.
So yeah, it was my second rock and roll concert. Okay. So I had seen Fleetwood Mac the year before in '82. I think I was the extra guy on this ticket. I think there was. I don't think I was originally slated to go. That's the story of my life with a lot of concerts. Is I was the extra.
Yeah.
When whoever the real friend was dropped out, they would call me, and I was like, I would slide in like the stunt double. So I went to this concert as well. Not acquainted with Styx in the way I thought that I was, and we saw it at a venue called the City Center.
Okay.
And this was in late March, early April of '83.
Mm-hmm.
Before Styx went out on their giant tour, when we saw them at the City Center, like Eric said, it was almost like watching a theatrical show because they played this 10-minute movie beforehand, which set up. We're talking about Kilroy was here now. We're not talking about Paradise Theater, just to be clear. Kilroy was here was even more of a concept album. So they had this whole theatrical film that they played with actors and sets. I mean, there was effects in it. I mean, there was some decent coin spent on this.
Yeah.
Post-apocalyptic future type thing. Music is outlawed, yada, yada, yada. But yeah, they were playing, these guys were playing characters. They weren't playing Dennis DeYoung. They were playing different people. Then the stage show would take over, and there was actually points in the show where there'd be dialogue, where there'd be some acting, and it was kind of surrounded. How they did the concert was like, this was like kind of recollection of the last time the main character played a concert before everything got outlawed.
Yeah,
he was kind of like Dennis DeYoung was sitting and recalling what happened the night that this went down, and then they'd go into the Styx concert, and it was them performing
and performing a lot of their old material, and it was fantastic. I just remember,
it was incredible.
Yeah,
the thing is, they took it to the bigger stadiums, and it didn't play well. Like in a bigger stadium, it needed to be seen in that. Like when we saw it in this very intimate, small venue, and they played 4 nights.
Mm-hmm.
So they were still packing, they took a chance by doing these small venues, but they did 4 nights in a row of it.
And that's the thing. It's like there obviously is a connection there, because the theater that they meet up with, there's two characters that meet up, and Tommy Shaw's character is like, he's kind of like a rebel fighting for the cause to bring rock and roll back. And Kilroy, Dennis DeYoung is Kilroy. He is this, guy that's been in hiding, all this, like the underground and all this stuff. And so they meet actually at the Paradise Theater, which is
callback to this.
A callback to this album, which is,
he worked it in.
So there's those connections. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So,
yep. Yeah. And it was the same thing. I left. I remember vividly the show, and I remember not realizing how much music I knew by Styx. Like, it was kind of like, yeah, Come Sail Away, and maybe one or two, but then I was hearing songs that I was not aware of that they had done, maybe like Blue Collar Man. I wasn't overly aware that was Styx or hadn't connected it. And I left a huge fan. Yeah. A huge fan. Immediately went back into the catalog.
That's right.
And started grabbing everything. Honestly, I did, right?
The very next day, I think I bought maybe two of their albums on cassette.
It was like Paradise Theater, Cornerstone, Equinox, Pieces of Eight,
right?
Crystal Ball. It was just get it, give me everything.
Yeah,
because it was just they were just so great, and that's the thing about Styx, is very underrated. Nowadays it's about the fighting and the infighting and the crosstalk or the lack of crosstalk, but Paradise Theater, we're gonna get into it now, but Styx was just really a special band and don't really get their due, and that's part of my problem with the whole thing. Is it's easy to drag Styx. They use words like corporate rock, whatever that means. I still don't know what that means, but they used to throw that word around, corporate rock. I never saw a Pepsi logo on the stage. Never saw a Nike logo on any of their shirts, so I don't know what corporate rock means, but they were there since before all that. Like I said, like we said, since 1972, they were a prog rock band, so they paid their dues. So it wasn't like this something came easy or it's gimmicky. I mean, they really worked at the craft and evolved. It
was a conscious decision to go in that direction. It wasn't like they were forced to do it. I felt, like a lot of the decisions that were made, which Dennis DeYoung would get sort of hammered over the head for by doing a song like Babe, and that's selling out. Immediately people say that's selling out, but I don't see it that way. It's a different thing. It's a different state of mind. You are changing with the times, and he was very, very aware of that, as we said.
Yeah, but they still didn't. I mean, that's the thing is, and that's where the stories come from with. Now Styx is in two factions. Basically, Dennis DeYoung was ousted from the band that he founded, which is kind of strange.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah, and Tommy Shaw, James Young are basically leading the band. And the story they always tell is, well, when Babe came out, it was too soft for us. I'm sure they cashed the checks.
Yeah,
I'm sure that the house, they bought the houses with it, and that doesn't mean that if you listen to that album Cornerstone, Tommy Shaw has some light songs on there too. It's not like everything was like hard rock and Dennis DeYoung
got some light songs on this album too.
Yeah, exactly.
Too much Time on My Hands is not a hard rocking song, in my opinion. I'm sorry.
No, it's just, I think there's one clunker on this album.
Yeah.
And it's a Tommy Shaw song, honestly, because it is a little. And there's nothing wrong with that, though. There's nothing wrong with ballads and Styx on this album. If you really listen to this album, they're actually rocking pretty hard. Yeah. When you give it a listen, there's a lot of guitar work on this album for the what you might call the syrupy stuff, and there's not a whole lot of it on this album as well. It's very deceptive, this album. After giving it another listen.
You might say that prog element is still there, and because only in the way the songs are structured. Okay, this isn't like a free flowing kind of rock and roll album. It is very structured. It is kind of there are certain songs that are telling a story. So yeah, those distinct guitar parts, they come in at just the right time. Everything is built. The songs are built that way so that there's a lot of changes in the structure of the song. So yeah, so people might say, oh, if you're listening to a softer song, it starts out that way, but then it get by the middle of it, it's kind of like rocking out at that point.
Yeah.
So it's, it's a slow burn.
Best of Times is probably the highest example of that.
Yeah.
Is everyone knows that as like the prom song or the graduation song, and it's kind of sappy and syrupy, right? And it's a great song. It's got some great,
it's the best song.
It might be corny lyrics, but by the time you get to the middle part, there's some nice guitar work in there.
In my opinion, it is the best song off the album. And it's my favorite song off the album, especially now.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I always love it and revere it. I kind of fell in love with another song, and we used to make fun of it. So,
okay. I know where this is.
When I listen to it, I listen to this album, like I listened to that song like 2 or 3 times. I'm like, you know what? This song actually might be it might be the strongest song on there as far as a Styx album goes too.
Okay.
There's 2, but let's get started. So
okay.
The notion of the Paradise Theater, again, the concept of paradise is mentioned in a couple of different lyrics, mainly in Dennis DeYoung's lyric writing. He's really the thread. He was really the guy with the idea for this. And the album starts off just with this a melodical theme actually goes through the album as well. And if you're familiar with the song Best of Times, that melodic theme starts the album off. It closes the album, and it also kind of drifts through the second to last song as well. The whole Tonight's the Night Will Make History. And then there's different variations on the lyric after that, but it pretty much always starts off with Tonight's the Night Will Make History.
Yeah.
If he's talking about the beginning of the album, it's more about getting the Paradise Theater lit up and getting people in. But then when he talks about it in Best of Times, it's more from a romantic aspect and side and point of view. And then at the very end, when that melodic line is revisited, it's like everything is done and kind of closing up and ending the album.
There's a kind of melancholy to it, so it's like an overarching, arc to the story about this theater that is at one time just a place where everybody went. And then it just sadly deteriorated over time, and this thing.
Times changed.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing, and it got left behind, and that's the.
I would say that would
parallel of the 70s to the 80s.
Right. That I think that would probably be the main theme running throughout this thing is time. There's a lot of time references on this album.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, time and paradise and notions of paradise. So it starts off with again, like you got to listen to the 2 together. So there's a song, it's called AD 1928, and it's kind of like a little intro. The thing about this album too is Styx gives you a lot for your money. There's only one song that's less than 4 minutes long. So each one of these songs has got a lot in it. It's not like these are like 3-minute, 2-minute little pop songs. They're not really pop song length on here. Because there's a lot of stuff that a lot of ideas that these songs prevent. If you put Rockin' the Paradise and its intro together, then it makes it a 4-minute song. So I'm going to count Rockin' the Paradise as not a 3-minute song. But it starts off with that song and it gets you ready.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, Rockin' the Paradise is just classic Styx.
Right. And
you're not going to get anything like. It's one of the best starts to an album because he starts off just with the piano, Dennis DeYoung, and he's singing, like you said, that melancholy line. We want to turn on these theater lights and here at the Paradise, and then it transitions into Rockin' the Paradise, and the song and the hard rock just really takes over. The guitar assault, Dennis's theatrical vocals really come, in on this song and really kind of playing it up, and the band is just with him on it. I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. It is that kind of show, when you think, this stuff is geared. It's tailor-made for a live performance. It's almost as if that's the intent is to make this album so that they can get out there and play it live. Like it's sort of a template for,
it's a fun album.
Live. Yeah,
it's a fun, the second side gets a little serious, but it's just an easy listen. I really enjoyed listening to it because, like I said, I'm going to put Styx up there with their harmonies. I mean, that's one of the things about Styx.
Yeah,
is the harmony, the vocal blend that Dennis DeYoung, Tommy Shaw, and James Young achieved. Because I think they all have different like James Young has kind of a lower voice.
Mm-hmm.
Tommy Shaw is like right in the middle, and Dennis DeYoung can soar. And we'll get to it, but yeah, their vocal blend is bar none is up there. I'll put it with anybody.
I would say, but without Dennis DeYoung, this band would not be Styx. I mean, to me, Dennis DeYoung is the voice of Styx.
Yeah, you need all three of them there, and that blend is only achieved with those three in their parts, in their zone, and when you put it together, it's just amazing. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So Rockin' the Paradise. Then you've got the big radio hit, Too Much Time on My Hands, from Tommy Shaw, classic rock radio staple. Everybody knows this song. This was like the pretty much the big hit. It's up tempo. It's been recently parodied by Jimmy Fallon and Paul Rudd. They did they were doing those remakes of corny music videos from the 80s and 90s.
Yep.
And they set their sights firmly on this one because of, if you watch the music video, Tommy Shaw's wearing like this green like jumpsuit. Yeah. And then Dennis DeYoung at the time was really full on into the whole Paradise Theater thing. So he was dressing with like the bow tie and like the vest and the striped shirt, and he had that little thing around his arm. I mean, so he was in like the full garb. When you put that into a music video, it's made for 30 or 40 years later. It's made for parody, tailor-made for parody.
Yeah, absolutely. and unfortunately, I think I'm not surprised because, I don't, it's not to me. I thought I used to really like this song, but it's not,
doesn't age for you?
It doesn't age for me, this song. I don't know why. I don't know what it is about it. Perhaps it's my, I don't think Tommy Shaw, personally, I just don't think he's all that, to be honest with you. I just don't think, him coming later, and I know we'll comment on this later. I don't want to get too far into it now, but it's just like, I think that I'm just going to say it, I think, for him to come in so late in the game, a few albums down the road, he might have added something to the band, but I don't think that he became the band, which in his mind, I think he did in a certain sense.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that later, but
I mean, he did deliver, like I said, he had Blue Collar Man, he had Renegade. I mean, he had a lot of really great songs. So he did add something. He was not my favorite either, but I certainly respect and can appreciate what he brought in. The good thing is that Dennis DeYoung always got the lion's share of the songs as well. So it's kind of, I got what I needed from Tommy Shaw, and it wasn't too much. Yeah. It's small doses. I really enjoy Tommy Shaw, but a whole lot, like I bought his solo album, and I think I just listened to like that first song, Girls with Guns, and that was it.
I did too.
Like, okay, I got enough.
Yeah, I think we had at that point we were getting everything right. We even had James Young's
solo album
collaboration with Jan Hammer of all people from Miami Vice. And,
so they were all putting their stuff out. And you know what? That could have been the solution. We'll get into the animosity later.
Okay.
Of what could have kept Styx together, perhaps. But after that, another great Dennis vocal with Nothing Ever Goes as Planned.
Yeah, I like this
again,
one.
Anchored by those harmonies. That's the thing, is they put those harmonies in almost every song, so it became unmistakably Styx.
Yeah,
like that was part of the secret sauce. Is you rarely had a song that didn't have it because they were so damn good at it. They really were.
Yeah, the song kind of builds a little bit. It's like this light, and there's like I said before, like those little meticulous guitar parts that are very, very structured. They kind of accent the song in the beginning, like, and then by the middle of it, it comes in full with the harmonies, and there's that great chorus there. Nothing ever goes as planned. And
they got some horns in there. They're just using Dennis DeYoung at the height of his powers.
Yeah,
kind of just understanding and kind of giving everything to it. So you've got songs with the horns on it, but then it's got guitar solos and just great stuff. Great stuff. I really, and then after that, closing out side one is The Best of Times, which again is that hand holding, lighter in the air, put your arm around your significant other song and move back and forth as it is played.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna reveal something here. I haven't listened to this album literally in 35 years. That is no joke. That is honestly.
I know, because I used to ask you, and you're like, I don't listen to Styx anymore.
That's right. That's right.
Like, what?
No, this album in particular, 35 years. The last time I listened to Styx, an album by Styx, was 26 years ago, which was the day I left to move to Florida.
Well, it's good to know that you're keeping track. So that means you care.
I do care. And this is my point. This is the point I'm trying to make.
Okay.
Is that I might have thought that Styx was just a passing thing. It's a band that I don't, readily sit down and listen to on my own. But they do bring back a lot of memories. And I think the music reflects that. The music is definitely, that's what their music is about. Memories. It's building memories. It's looking back at things. It's, especially this album. So when I listened to it today for the first time in 35 years, yeah, this song really it actually brought tears to my, and a chill, especially in the line where he says, people say these are the worst of times. I do believe it's true. When people lock their doors and hide inside, rumor has it this is the end of paradise. What is God? What is that speaking to right now, right here and now in these times?
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's funny you mentioned that, because last year, he recorded. He did like at his home during the lockdown. He made a video of him singing this song.
Yeah,
and it got like 1 million views in 1 week because of the timeliness.
Yeah.
Or how you can interpret those lyrics. It was meant to be interpreted in a different way. But, when we're talking about a lockdown and yeah, when people lock their doors and hide inside,
you can't
it has a different meaning. It takes on a totally different color.
Absolutely. You can't overlook that. You can't think of anything else right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I actually got a chill when I listened to that, just the way that the way the chord changes in that verse,
and it's just his voice by himself,
and it's just and it just, oh my God, it just got me.
minimal accompaniment right there.
Yeah.
And it's just letting his voice, and that's the thing about Dennis DeYoung. Oh, God, his voice.
The day I left for Florida, I listened to "Come Sail Away." That was the song.
As you drove away, I listened to "Bye Bye, So Long and Farewell."
Well, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. I thought I was getting all sentimental here, but I guess not.
I listened to "Happy Trails" by Van Halen,
but it was starting a new chapter, and and here we are having that. Well, I wouldn't, obviously not the same kind of emotion, but a different kind of emotion.
Yeah.
But it hitting me heavy with
in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It was so strange that this song became timely, and not for a good reason, put it that way, but it hit just so. You have to listen, if for curiosity's sake, and you don't want to listen to anything else by Styx, listen to Best of Times and think about 2020.
Yeah.
We'll leave that there.
People right? associated people associated with like their wedding or like it's like
proms, graduation. We're going to remember how it was, and it took on a different tenor.
Yeah.
In 2020.
And the whole and even the song itself, like you don't think of it as you might have thought of it as a corny ballad or whatever, but not anymore. Not anymore, especially with those. Like I said, those chord changes and the way he delivers the vocal in it, and just come on,
as only Dennis could,
exactly, because he has that instinct, that great instinct,
and he's got the chops too. That's the thing.
Yeah,
he's got the pipes. And this is probably a good place to kind of insert that is, as a vocalist, I'll put him. We shouldn't do a top 5 because you're pretty much already going to know who our top 5 vocalists are if we ever do the show. But I'd put Dennis DeYoung in the top 5 easily.
Yeah, I could see that.
Maybe right behind. Honestly, maybe right behind Freddie Mercury.
Okay.
I mean, he's got that power. He's got that range, and he's got that vocal velocity too.
Yeah.
Think about when we saw him do "Sweet Madam Blue" and how long he held that note for.
That's right.
I saw him. In 2019 at 72 or 73, and he did it again. And once he finished the note, he stopped the song. He said, if I knew I was going to have to be doing this 40 years later, I would have never wrote that note to be that long, because he still does it.
Yeah.
And he's funny, but he still has the vocal chops too. So that's one of the great things about him too, is his voice isn't wrecked. He had it then, and he's got it now as well.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
After all this time. I mean, I think we kind of touched upon it in one other episode, and I don't remember which one it was, but we talked about the idea of knowing a song before you knew it, right? Right? You've heard it.
Felt that you heard it before.
You don't know, and that sticks with me. A lot of their stuff, Angry Young Man, I think that was one of the that might have been one of the songs that I just instinctively knew. Like you mentioned,
Mademoiselle.
When we saw the concert, like a lot of the stuff was just absolutely familiar.
Yeah,
and it's like, I don't listen to Styx. How do I know this?
Yeah,
and it's not like we were that in tune with the radio in terms, at least for me, every day religiously listening to FM radio. So, a lot of these songs might have been played. No idea where I heard a lot of this stuff, but it was always a Dennis DeYoung vocal. It was always that distinctive vocal that really, that you just know. And it just sort of came out of nowhere. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, so yeah, like he has that,
he's got that soaring vocal.
Exactly.
And
I don't know what, amazing. And it never, like you say, it never really changed over the years. It never really got gravelly or, whatever. It never, he kept that.
Yeah, he never had to tune down or anything for the most part.
No, like most people do.
Yeah, he just still can just kind of
and belt it out.
Yeah, and it seems so effortless even at this age. So we get to side 2, and you get a song called "Lonely People," which has really kind of come to the forefront in my past few listenings. I'm like, wow, this is a really strong song as well. It's big, it's brassy. It's got some serious bass in it from Chuck Panazzo, and the drumming again. John Panazzo is just all over the place on this album. He was just so good, and so no one knew anything about John Panazzo.
Yeah,
and when we saw him, I was like, this guy he's got a strange style of a strange way of drumming. Almost like he's afraid, like that he's like pulling away from the drums. Like his style is very strange. But he gets a bombastic sound out of his drums as well, though.
He had some of the best fills I've ever heard in rock music.
Yeah. I mean, top to bottom, Styx was a bunch of pros. No weak link. That's the thing is the Panazzo brothers were in there laying the rhythm down. And if you listen, there's a lot of nice bass on this album, and you can really listen to Chuck Panazzo. Just kind of lay it down, understated, getting it done and anchoring these songs. So Dennis can soar, or Tommy Shaw can lay down some really nice guitar work, as well as James Young.
And maybe that's the reason why when they changed, when they did do things like Babe, why people were so hard on them, because they were such great musicians. They were expecting more out of them. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like in that prog era, there was a lot, like I said before, like a lot of noodling, a lot of that kind of long-winded, kind of stuff. But like I said, you end
up cutting your teeth on that kind of stuff and getting good. And then
there's something to be said of being able to restrain that and to pull it back and just play it when it needs to be played. That's a great musician. And these guys, these guys,
and that's what they learned how to do is they kind of came out of that prog cocoon and like entered with Crystal Ball and Grand Illusion and kept on refining it and still having some of those prog elements, especially Pieces of Eight. I mean, that's, if you listen to that, it's still got a lot in there. And then they come out with Cornerstone, which was the kind of the pivot towards more of the pop oriented stuff. Again, I got no problem with it. Styx is infinitely listenable if they're doing whatever they're doing. I don't really have a problem with any of their eras. They want to go light, go light. You want to go heavy? I'm ready for that too. Yeah. And that was the great thing about Styx is you get all that on an album. You get such diverse things, and they just couldn't.
There's a lot of range to their music.
Couldn't pull it together. And then here we go. The weakest song is this song called "She Cares" by Tommy Shaw.
Yeah.
It's just kind of if there's a misfire, it's this song. It's kind of limp. It's just kind of there. The lyrics are kind of weird. It's just for kind of strange.
Yeah.
And it's an okay song. It's an up-tempo pop song, but with everything else that's going on in this album, it kind of gets lost maybe on a weaker album, it would probably be a stronger song.
Mm-hmm.
But on this album, when you already had Too Much Time on My Hands by him, which was a much stronger song, a lot more to it, a lot more harder edge, and then you have the song She Cares, which is a love song, and there's nothing wrong with that. But he was, blasting Dennis for writing Babe.
Yeah. Yeah, go figure.
Yeah, go figure. Yeah. And then a concert staple written by Dennis DeYoung and James Young.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, Dennis DeYoung does not sing on this song, even though he co-wrote it, which is Snowblind.
Mm-hmm.
About it, and if you think it's about cocaine, it's about cocaine. It is about the highs and lows, and the song actually is structured that way. We get to finally hear from James Young. And James Young is like the George Harrison of Styx.
Yeah.
Like relegated to maybe one song and a half per album. He's an acquired taste, but he was an acquired taste that I latched onto. I love he's got a low kind of like almost like baritone voice. Yeah. I don't know what you'd call it. It's in the lower register. It's very like,
yeah. And it was used to great effect. Let's put
it's an acquired taste, but I enjoy it. So,
but his guitar playing, on the other hand, his presence is felt throughout.
I mean, and when you have two guitarists, it's kind of it might be easy to kind of get lost, but they are very defined soloists. I think Tommy Shaw's solos are a little bit more well thought out. They're a little bit cleaner.
Mm-hmm.
James Young's solos tend to be a little rougher. A little more unhinged, which that's the great thing in Styx. There's room for both. So when you need it,
well, he clearly is
you go to it
in terms of like just sort of upfront rock purity. That's James Young. It's him. Yeah,
yeah.
He is the rock and roll guy on this band. Like just the appearance of him, the longer hair, the beard,
and he never writes any ballads. I mean, when he's relegated to his song or two per album, it's gonna be a rock and roll song like Miss America and that kind of stuff, like from Equinox and all that. Like he just kind of lays in there and he goes for it, and that's fine. And that's the great thing is you kind of, once you get to know Styx, you kind of get to know what to expect. So when there's a James Young song coming, you're in for rock because he doesn't do anything but that. Yeah. So there's that part of Styx that's being fulfilled. And then you've got Tommy Shaw is kind of in the middle, and then Dennis DeYoung can go. He can do either one. He can rock hard, or he can. His voice is tailor-made for ballads, though. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, he's the lighter touch, but he's the anchor. He is he's the driving force. He's, like I said before, it wouldn't be the band without that vocal. It wouldn't, and he is the presence that's so sorely needed to counterpoint, this harder rock and stuff kind of thing. That's balance to me. That's I would prefer that in a band.
Yeah. Absolutely.
There's an absolute tightness to this group. To say that this band had so many problems, you would never know it.
Yeah, there was
never reflected.
So many weapons, many weapons in this band. That was the great thing. Yeah. And with Snowblind, you get James Young singing in the beginning, and then you get Tommy Shaw taking it over. So it's a really nice contrast.
Yeah.
I remember when we saw the concert, when I heard this song, I'm like, this was that moment for me. I was like, I know I heard this song somewhere before. And I don't know where I could have heard Snowblind, but I remember like, wow, that really sounds familiar. Every song though at the concert, I was just like, it was like one after the other. It was kind of like gobsmacked. I was like, what? What's going on here? How do I not have a Styx album? You better believe the next day I had like 6 Styx albums.
Yeah.
So Snowblind became a concert favorite, a concert staple. It's about cocaine use, so that's not kind of wimpy, and that's certainly not lighthearted. Styx could kind of get down and dirty with the subject matter, and co-written by Dennis DeYoung. So again, he's not the I know I sound like an apologist for Dennis DeYoung. I'm sorry, but I'm going to advocate for him.
No, let's point this out. Let's make this clear. I mean, if you've ever heard him give an interview, if you ever heard him like writes, like when people are interviewing, like I just read an interview with him about his latest album. And the man talks like a truck driver. Every other word is F this, F that. He curses like, he's profanity. He's like a tough guy. Like, he's like, like he talks like very much like, kind of reminds me of like Billy Joel in that sense, where he, comes across as a real New Yorker, right? Like he's just,
but he's from Chicago.
Chicago, but he's like this tough, like
the mean streets.
But to hear the music, it's a totally, you think of him
Different thing.
like as some kind of like, maybe some people might think he's kind of a pansy or something to that effect, like,
not at
but
all.
no, but not at all. I mean, he's,
songwriter.
Yeah, absolutely. Performer.
So that brings us to a song called Halfpenny, Twopenny, which is written by James Young. And it's kind of, on the surface, it seems like a very strange song.
Yeah.
Again, especially if you're not used to James Young's vocals, because he would be the polar opposite of Dennis DeYoung. He's not a sophisticated vocalist, a little more growly, a little more grungier with his vocal stylings. Doesn't, not a big note holder. So you could be like, well, what's up with this song? But when I listen to it, I'm like, wow. First of all, again, there's the harmonies that anchor that song, because it comes out throughout. The closest thing to a prog song, it's a pretty long song, and there's instrumental break, there's keyboards, there's some sick, serious guitar on that song. I kind of listen, I'm like, wow, I don't remember it being that guitar being that dirty.
Yeah. In terms of going back to, you're right. You're absolutely right. The guitar is insane, but his vocal, I think it's a theatricality to it. Again, there's that prowess of them putting on a show. And James Young's definitely, like, he caters to that too, with that, like, that kind of like, thing.
And I think the vocal gets stronger and rough as the song goes on. I think his vocal gets a little more manic, and
he's not just screaming like rock and roll lyrics here. He's like, he's a character. Like,
he's performing it.
Yeah, he's performing.
And it's really good. And then the really nice thing about the song, it is epic. On it's a 5-minute song, but it's pretty epic scale.
Yeah,
because as it starts to wind down, you start to get the kind of the tinklings and of the melody, again, of that melody from Best of Times and what opens a song. And they do it so brilliantly, because the song is kind of fading out and it's kind of winding down, and they're just putting these underpinnings of those melodic lines that you've been hearing throughout the album into this song as it fades out. And then it literally goes into AD 1958. So the beginning is AD 1928, and this would be 30 years later, AD 1958. And then it becomes just a single piano, very kind of melancholy. Like you said, that's probably the best word for it. And then just a very simple Dennis vocal, kind of saying, hey, time, our time is over. Time has claimed its prize. But as long as we have the memories of, like you said, the memories of paradise. And that kind of sees the album out. And then there's a little reprise of some kind of barrel house or, piano playing with a little instrumental that ends the album.
Sexy Sadie, which was
Sexy State Street Sadie.
State Street, was it? Okay. State Street. Okay.
State Street Sadie.
Which was meant to,
Sexy Sadie is the Beatles.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That was John Lennon.
Yeah, I think Dennis had mentioned that this was actually supposed to be a much longer tune. That he goes, upon listening to Paradise Again, I would have put the entire thing on it. Like, this is like, it's supposed to be like a long little instrumental ditty that was supposed to close the album out, but it's only like a piece of it. But he would have rather have the whole thing if he had his way.
Yeah, I think it works. I think it works like that. It kind of closes out the album, and it gets, like I said, this album is just, it moves pretty quick. It really does, and that's just because it's so well produced and so well performed. It's really tight.
It really is. It really is. And I was going to say that it might not hold up for me, but by talking it out, I think, I'm probably going to walk that back a little bit and say,
all right,
it was definitely worth, revisiting.
Mission accomplished.
No, revisiting especially after all this time, it was really, really nice to go back there. When I think of Styx, I think of just our memories, and we got into this group together, and that kind of thing. So immediately my thoughts always go back to where I came from, my friends, when I, and again, like I said before, I think certain bands have that ability. I think Journey is another band that would probably be in the same wheelhouse when it comes to childhood memories and things.
Yeah, it's easy to put them in like the nostalgia file.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's why, and maybe that's why I advocate so hard for them, because it's easy to dismiss that. But if you go and you listen to these albums, there's just so much there. They're more than the sum of their singles.
Mm-hmm.
If you sit and you listen to Dennis DeYoung sing, you'll really hear how strong his voice is and how long he holds notes. So these were not fly-by-nighters. It's just that they got this weird reputation of like being this anti-rock band, which is very curious and just not representative of what rock was. But yeah, you put them in with Journey, Foreigner, Bob Seger, Steve Miller Band, and Styx. These guys were all running around in the mid to late 70s.
Yeah,
they were all in that same
Boston.
kind of thought of in the same way. Yeah, Boston. Yep. All these groups were occupied kind of like that same area.
That's right.
Those groups were all interchangeable, and Styx is right in there. You can't tell me that "Come Sail Away" isn't one of the greatest rock songs of all time.
No,
you can't.
No, it definitely.
That's a certified anthem.
Mm-hmm. Right. But that's right. But it's like there comes a time when, not to sound like a snob or whatever, but there comes a times when that kind of thing just you kind of move on and you want to pursue other things. And for the longest time, I did not listen to a lot of this kind of stuff, just for whatever reason. It didn't hold my interest in terms of wanting to hear something more challenging. Let's put it that way, or perhaps delving down even older music, which I had never always wanted to do, but never really had.
Because it's kind of like been there, done that. I get it. But Styx, Styx is like that comfortable jacket, though.
It is.
You could put it on, and then you forget how comfortable it was, and how great the stitching is, and how it's still holding up after all this time when you put it on, and that's what they are. Mm-hmm. Is you kind of. You forget the workmanship that went into it until you pull the jacket out again.
That's right.
And you examine it and you put it on again. You're like, wow, this was really well made. And that's what Styx was, is they just, I think better than a lot of those bands, or as good as Foreigner or Journey or any of them. I'd put Dennis DeYoung against Steve Perry. It would be pretty close. That vocal showdown would be pretty close.
Oh yeah, that would be be an interesting thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So. Steve Perry and Dennis DeYoung, belting it out. That'd be a tough one. It would.
So let's talk about. I mean, I haven't kept up with Styx after Kilroy and maybe that live album that they put out from that tour.
Yep.
Probably the last time I ever listened to Styx. Like I didn't pay attention to what they were doing for the last 20 years. I haven't heard a stitch of their new music at all.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's.
Well, here's what happened, right? Is they put out Paradise Theater, which went to number 1 3 weeks. So it was their biggest album by far. Mm-hmm. What happens after that is Dennis DeYoung, and this is the misstep, which he was never forgiven for, is he decides to take that concept one step further, because he was definitely going in this direction of more theatrical. He was starting to have some of that Broadway ambition, which would reveal itself later on. Kilroy was here. What we saw was full on theatrical.
Yeah.
Full on like concept album, playing characters. And for Tommy Shaw and James Young that just want to play rock and roll, and there's nothing wrong with that, this did not fit with them. Mm-hmm. The problem, and sure, it was a misstep. It sold a ton. It went to number 3 on the charts, but it was just kind of like almost unforgivable at the time. They were like, oh, this was it. This was like the straw that broke the camel's back. Could they have gone? I think they could have gotten through this if they had because they had broken up and then they started doing solo albums, and they did reconvene. But after that, it was like a rotating roster. Dennis DeYoung would be in. He would be out. Tommy Shaw would be in. Tommy Shaw would join Damn Yankees. I actually met Tommy Shaw.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I delivered a pizza to him.
That's right.
When I used to deliver pizza.
That's right. I do remember that story. Yeah, okay.
It was I had a delivery to like the Days Inn or whatever the local motel was.
The Days
Inn. And I go up to the room, knock on the door, and Tommy Shaw opens the door. And this was after I was well into Styx, but after Styx had broken up. So he was with Damn Yankees.
Okay.
So Tommy Shaw opens the door, and I'm holding the pizza. I'm like, oh my God, you're Tommy Shaw. And he's like, yeah. I was like, the best I could muster was I really loved you in Styx.
Oh, ouch.
Because I was not a fan of Damn Yankees. I didn't like that kind of stuff. I'm not a fan of Ted Nugent. It just didn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
But he gave me a good tip. He signed a piece of paper. He gave me a Tommy Shaw guitar pick, and I was on my way. So I did get to meet Tommy Shaw.
Well, there you go.
But yeah, so they kind of went through different circles and cycles. They did have a minor hit with that song Show Me the Way in the 90s when the Gulf War was going on. That became something that the fighter pilots were listening to or whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then they broke up again in, like, I don't know, 2000 whatever, early 2000s is when they really kicked Dennis to the curb.
See, this is what I don't understand. Then this is what gets me. It's like, here's a guy that this band is essentially his. He created it. He put it together. Him and James Young. Okay, the Panazzo brothers. Okay, one of them is gone, or are they both gone now? John and Chuck.
Chuck plays every so often.
Okay, so Chuck is still around. Okay.
So and he doesn't play every show, but he play when he's healthy, because he's HIV positive, so he doesn't always play. Okay. But when he's able to, he's there at the shows as well.
Okay, so Tommy Shaw is kind of like the spokesman now for Styx?
Yeah, he's like the de facto leader. Him and James Young.
How is it that that anybody can get kicked out of a band that you founded? When does that happen? How much freedom do you give, or how much, like, when somebody comes in a little bit later, how much you treat them like an equal?
Yeah.
Is that necessarily a good thing? You start to think about that.
I guess if you're talking democratically and you're talking about votes and equal shares, and if you get voted out when you're talking about a corporation and things in a corporate, and this is maybe where the corporate rock came in, mm-hmm. is, when you're talking about those types of legal things and people siding with each other and saying, well, we're not going to continue if you're still here. Kind of like what happened with Lindsey Buckingham, right? He recently got chucked from Fleetwood Mac. Yeah. Stevie Nicks is like, you don't get rid of him, I'm not going out on tour. Mm-hmm. So sometimes your hand gets forced, but there's unfortunately a lot of animosity on the James Young and Tommy Shaw side. Now, does Dennis Young have an ego? Probably. Is he probably difficult to get along with? He probably was. Mm-hmm. But who isn't in rock and roll that we haven't heard about?
That's right.
It's about managing those egos. But the problem is that Tommy Shaw and James Young have kind of made it so unequivocally clear that they will never work with him again, that they almost can't walk that back. Like, because Dennis Young is like, let's give everybody one last tour. Like, for the fans, not for anything else. Let's get together for one last tour and then do what you want. But they have gone in so hard against him. Like, we will never work with him. And we would never share the stage with him. That, like, for them to now do that, they would probably get such backlash. I think the only way you'll ever see Styx together again, cross my fingers, is if they get inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Maybe you would see them come together for that. And that's a long shot, because for some reason Styx is not ever on any of the ballots. Yeah. Yet their peers like Foreigner, Journey, Fleetwood Mac, again, all those other ones are getting in. Steve Miller, all those guys are getting in, but Styx is kind of left out in the cold for some unknown reason. And like I said, 4 consecutive triple platinum albums, 8 top 10 hits. I mean, come on, what do they need to do? Shine the shoes of everybody in the Hall of Fame? Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of the animosity is it's just not a good look. So Styx tours, they have a replacement keyboardist who's been in the band at probably at this point longer than Dennis DeYoung, Lawrence Gowan, Canadian artist. He sings kind of like Dennis, not exactly the same, but close enough that he fills in. I've never listened to a Styx album after the Dennis DeYoung era. He went on to have a solo career. He had a couple of good albums, Desert Moon and Back to the World. Mm-hmm. And then he tours. And he tours now, and he's in great voice, and he's got a band. He's got his own replacement Tommy Shaw guy who looks like him. He's got a replacement JY guy that's got the same haircut and sings like the JY songs. And he puts on like a Styx show, because he doesn't shy away like they do Blue Collar Man. And the Tommy Shaw guy sings it. And they actually did Miss America The last time I saw Dennis DeYoung, they did Miss America. I'm like, what are they doing? Am I the only person that knows this song?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I couldn't believe the stuff that Dennis DeYoung was digging out and playing for their.
Well, see, that's what I don't get. It's like, they want to pretend that they're doing something so radically different than what they were doing. And yet James Young was right there from the beginning doing this prog thing, doing this sort of theatrical stuff, right along, rubbing shoulders with Dennis DeYoung.
Yeah.
Creating the same kind of music, doing the voice. And this is not, I'm sure this wasn't Dennis DeYoung saying, you need to do this, do this kinds of thing because I want you to. This was something that, stuff that
and there's room
wrote.
enough in a band. Yeah. And so there's room enough in a band to do it.
How do you justify saying, oh, I'm Mr. Rock and Roll. I don't want to do this, like these play kind of things anymore.
Yeah.
But yet they still, in my mind, they still do.
Yeah. I could see like, okay, this theatrical stuff is over the top. I could see that. But there still had to have been a way then for everybody to get their slice of the pie. Is no one's saying, Tommy Shaw, don't do your rock stuff. It doesn't mean it can't exist alongside of some lighter stuff that Dennis does, and he doesn't always do lighter stuff. So it's kind of weird.
Right. Don't they realize that was the formula though? That was the thing that held that's what made Styx great was the diversity. Exactly.
Yeah, it's too bad. It's one of those. It's one of those sad tales like we told with Blondie, of just the animosity just eats away at the band, and really kind of shreds the credibility. Unfortunately, then they're known more, like Fleetwood Mac and so many other ones. They're known more for the arguing, and the drama and the story than they become for the music. And we wanted to talk about Paradise Theater to remember the music and remember that this was a special band before all this stuff. Every article you read nowadays is about fighting and who's not talking and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
This show was to remember Styx at the height of their powers. Remember why they were so special.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm grateful for it because, like I said, I didn't really come to this thinking I was going to be so positive about it, because there are certain things that for me, like I said, to be fair, don't hold up. But on the other hand, it was a more innocent time. It was our time. And this band is one of the shining examples of that soundtrack that was going on at the time.
Are you going to get out your Mr. Roboto suit now and wear it again? No, that's a no.
Quite. No.
All right. Well, maybe one day you'll dust it off.
Nope.
Oh boy. Yeah. So Styx is a high, again, I sound definitely like someone advocating heavily for Dennis DeYoung, and that's because I'm so passionate about it. Someone's got to be a voice for him.
I'm actually glad that it's gratifying to see you're still such a big fan after all these years. Some of us have moved on, some, listen to other things, you come back to it and you're just like,
is that my MO? I have a hard time moving on.
No, I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying it's a good thing. It's a very good thing, because you're, whether you know it or not, folks, Dean is very sentimental. He may not show it, but I think he's a very sentimental guy. I don't know. So see what you think. I'd like to hear some feedback on that. But
I suppose so. I enjoy it because it's good music. But again, like the beauty of what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And I've said it a lot on our early shows, is like when I re-listened to this, I heard something else. So, and that's the beauty, is you kind of listen to it back then and you listen to it for different reasons.
Yeah.
And if you revisit it now, and if you put on different ears and say, yeah, I know the song, so what else can I get from it? And that's why, and that was the beauty of listening to this, is I came away with a whole new appreciation for a song that you and I used to joke about and make fun of.
That's right.
All right. And kind of goof on. and in listening to and in giving it a serious listen again,
mm-hmm.
I was able to kind of find some appreciation and find some different things that hit me in different ways than I did when I was younger. So that's the thing, is you kind of listen to it then. And if you walk away from it after a while and be like, okay, that was that. I would encourage, like Eric did, I would encourage listeners to, if you think you don't listen to something anymore because it's dated or you used to, try it again with your new ears and see if maybe it doesn't hold up, and maybe like, that was a mistake, or I'm still not into it, but give it another shot mm-hmm. and see if it hits you in a different way, or listen if you hear different things.
Yeah.
Is that a fair request of our listeners?
I think so. Yeah.
And if you've never heard Paradise Theater before, give this one a listen. If you're going to listen to one Styx album, this is the one. It's an easy listen. It's got some, again, a lot of great instrumentation. You're not going to go wrong.
Nope, not at all.
This is not a snoozer.
It's fun. And like I said, it was really nice to revisit it after all this time. So yeah, it just if anything else, if nothing else, it did bring back a lot of great memories. And maybe and even some bad ones too. Some not so nice memories, but that's all part of it, all part of the journey.
That was you squeezing into the Mr. Roboto costume.
That's right.
That wasn't the good memory.
That was not the good memory at all. Yeah, that thing just kind of like, I don't know.
Hey, you know what the funny thing is when Dennis DeYoung went out on tour, he would do Mr. Roboto. He had the mask. He had like the original mask, and he would bring it out and hold it up. So he still did a little bit of the theatricality because he actually let there was like a kid in the front. There was like a kid in the There was a kid in the front row, and he handed the mask to like this kid in the front row.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
Let the kid hold it, and then he took it back. But I was like, oh man, if I was in that front row, I'd be running out the back with it.
Yeah,
there'd be like 3 security guys like tackling me. I'd be like, no,
get that guy.
It's mine.
He'd hold this thing up and he would sing into this thing like Hamlet holding the skull.
He still does it.
It's like Shakespearean.
He's still doing it.
Yeah.
So if you could check out either, you know what, do the comparison. This is, what's a good comparison? You know what this is like? The Beach Boys and Brian Wilson.
Okay.
Right? It's kind of the same dynamic. It's two bands or two factions that are out there simultaneously kind of presenting the same product.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because the Beach Boys are presenting it one way. And then Brian Wilson, who was not with the Beach Boys and was the leader, is presenting it also on his own. And you've got the same thing. You've got Styx out there presenting this material.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Dennis DeYoung out there also on his own presenting the material. So you've got double the opportunity, I suppose, to check out for yourself and see. Either way, they both sound good. Styx live, they sound really good. But we're gonna tie it up here with Paradise Theater from 1981. This is a highly recommended one, sentimental favorite, but also incredible instrumentation, incredible vocals. This is like a complete package album, right? It's not lacking in one. You're not trading off musicianship for vocals or vocals to hear really great music. This actually has all of it. And if you sit down and listen to it with headphones on, you're in for a real treat.
Yeah. It's a fun album, guys. It's there's enough there. There's enough there to enjoy. You may not every song, like we mentioned, there's a couple of downers or whatever. They don't hold up, but for the most part, it is, let's just say, Dennis DeYoung.
That's it.
Dennis DeYoung. That's enough said there. I mean, he carries this thing.
Dennis DeYoung.
It's for nobody else but Dennis. There you go.
His passion project.
That's just my opinion.
So, that's true. He's always been the heart and soul of the band. So that's going to do it for this episode of the 3324 podcast. We appreciate you joining us as we advocated heavily for Styx and hopefully their induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But you can find us on social media at 3324 podcast on Twitter and on Facebook. We do live shows also, so check us out there. Those are a lot of fun. That's your chance to interact with us. And we love that. Those are ones that we have a blast with. So that's going to do it for this episode. For Eric, this has been Dean, and we will see you on the flip side.